Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. It's Nash, owner of Nash's Wallet, and if this is your first time here, welcome. This channel focuses on budgeting, personal finance, as well as lifestyle and business content. So if that's something you're interested in, don't forget to subscribe down below and check out my channel for some other videos. I thought it would make the most sense with it being February 1st to take some time to close out January's budget, input the numbers to see how I actually did in comparison to the budget that I created for the month, and kind of explain my process, what I do, and how I actually budget, so that by the end of the month, the numbers that I have actually help me for the following month to prepare for a fresh start with a new month to budget. Right here off to the side, I'm actually going to have the Google Sheets pulled up so you guys can see as I input the numbers real time, just so it's easier to understand and explain, and you guys will be able to see it along with me. I do a mix of both pen and paper and digital budgeting. And pen and paper is what I do from week to week since I budget as I get paid. I have a monthly budget that lays out everything that needs to be paid for the month. So that's bills, that's my cash envelopes, that's my savings, debt, all of that in one full month overview, which is what you'll see here in my estimates, my scrappy little notebook that I write out all of my numbers. And then as I get paid from week to week, I'll break down that paycheck into its own little budget, referencing my monthly budget to make sure what I need to get paid gets covered. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But what we're going to be going over is the full month here. So as you can see, this is how I have it laid out. I keep it very minimal, simple, straight to the point, and I kind of have adjusted it from what I was doing last year, and I just made it a lot more simple for me. So what I'm going to be doing is, I actually already crunched the numbers earlier in my notebook before we sat down here, just because it does take me some time to add everything up and make sure I have the full totals. So that's what I'm going to be referencing. I have this in my notebook right here, and what we're going to do is basically compare what I actually did to what I budgeted at the beginning of the month. So we're going to start off with income. I have my income broken down into 3 categories. We have hourly, we have my business, which is Nash's Wallet, and then we have miscellaneous. That could be if somebody was to send me money for some reason, or I was to sell something on Poshmark or Facebook Marketplace, or anything that doesn't fit into my part-time job and my business income that I pay myself. So if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, I actually got my first full-time job in the month of January, and my hourly income is going to change significantly because prior I was working at Staples part-time in the copy and print department, and now I'm going to be having a full-time job. So the hourly income section is definitely going to change, but for the month of January is the last month that I received pay from that job. So going over the numbers, I budgeted an estimate of $800 just because I was only working 3 days out of the week for about 7 hours max, so nothing too crazy. So the actual number was $824.68, and then for Nash's Wallet, I paid myself $335, and there was no miscellaneous, so that actually stays to 0. So what I did is, I actually already have the total set up to the sum of that category. So meaning, if you double click here, the total for my estimate, if you write sum, you're able to highlight what you want added up together. So what I did was highlight C4, 5, C4, 5, 6, and 7, so it could give me the total amount, which for the budgeted amount was $1,120. So if you actually drag the little box, it'll automatically format this new box to do the same for this. I don't know if this is considered for this column. So the actual total income that I received for January was $1,120. $159.68. So just going down the list, Tide for me is pretty high up there in importance, and I always try to make sure that I'm doing the 10%. So I always make sure that my hourly pay instantly gets my Tide taken out. For my business income, I try to do the same, but sometimes when I'm giving myself like $20, $30 to cover an expense, I don't worry too much about it. So for this month, we did 110, and then 52-week was 14. If you're not familiar with the 52-week challenge, I'm doing the week number we're in equals how much you save. So for example, if we are in week 4, I will be saving $4. So for January, it was week 2 to 5, so I saved a total of 14 for that specific challenge. Now going down the list, we're entering into bills. So the way I have it broken up, I always do income on the top, and then now I have Tide on its own little category. We have whatever savings challenge I'm working on, so 52-week is gonna be at the second, is gonna be right under, and then we get into bills and all of the other categories. So for bills, for rent is $300. So if you're unfamiliar with my living situation, I live at home with my mom, and I contribute a little bit towards the rent for where we live. So we have an agreement of $250, but what I did is I have made it like a challenge and a priority to put $300 towards rent, and the extra $50 that I'm putting towards rent is actually being put towards my house down payment savings account, and I'm like subconsciously saving on top of the 52-week for that specific goal of around $2,000 by the end of the year for my house down payment. So that's why for rent is $300. So we did $300 for rent. Phone was $103.40. It went up about 50 cents. The last couple months it was $102.90. I'm not too mad about that. I'm actually happy with that. Insurance is $108. That's just what I end up sending my mom so she can pay the bill. Upstart, which is one of the loans that I took out for school, is actually $141.88. I just always, when I do my budget on the left, I just round up to the next dollar. But when I put the actuals, I put in exactly how much the actual bill is. For subscriptions is $75. And the only reason why it's so high is because I was trying to get to the $90 mark because I'm trying to purchase AAA for my car, just because the insurance that I have isn't the greatest. That's why it's so cheap. So AAA for the full year is around $90 where I live, and it's more of a peace of mind in case something was to ever happen when I'm driving, that I need my car towed or I need the battery charged or that kind of thing. I can call them and I'll be good to go. So that's why it's so high, but technically the next couple months it would be the 90 divided by the 12 months, so that by this time next year I'll have the full amount again to purchase it for the full year. Instead of paying monthly, you end up spending more. So for Apple, it's $531. I'm on the student plan since I'm still in school. And cushion, I ended up not putting anything towards cushion. I didn't have any unbudgeted, which is great. That's always the goal. I never budget for unbudgeted because then you have room to spend money that you shouldn't be spending on things you shouldn't be spending it on. So anniversary was 73. Me and my boyfriend reached 5 years, and when I say that and people ask me how old I am, it's kind of weird, but I have been dating him since I was 17, so, and he was 15. We were babies. We're still babies, but it's been 5 years, and we had like a nice little, we always try to make sure that on that day we spend it together and are a little bit extra. So I ended up spending $73 altogether. And then the same thing goes for the total. All I have to do is drag it and it does the work for me. So this is actually giving me the sum of everything you see in orange. So for my bills, it actually ended up being more than my budgeted. It was $806.59, and I can already tell you where that came from, and it was right here. I'm actually going to mark the over budget categories in red just so I can know at a quick glance why I'm over budget in some categories by the color. So anniversary was actually over budget by $23, but I'm not too stressed about it because I'm okay with that. Now jumping into the cash envelopes, before we even get into it, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm over budget on all 3 of my cash envelopes. And I'm giving myself grace instead of being hard on myself because there was a couple things that were unexpected for this month. So on average, I would spend about $50 on gas, and I spent $66 because I started the new job. My commute to work is about 10 to 15 minutes versus a 5-minute drive to where I used to work. So I'm using a lot more gas because I'm hopping on the highway, and I didn't account for that because at the beginning of January, I didn't know I was gonna get a new job. I ended up actually interviewing for this job the first week of January, and I already kind of had this budget set. So that just goes to show that even when you set up a budget at the beginning of the month, you never really know what's gonna happen during the month that can shift the budget. So instead of trying to play it off, I'm being true to myself and being honest. Like, now I know for the next month I'm gonna have to raise that because $50 isn't even gonna come close to how much I'm gonna need for gas for the next month, since I'm no longer gonna be taking that 5-minute commute to work. For food, this is a tough one for me. I'm still struggling to find my happy medium when it comes to food. So we're at $96 for the month for food. For fun is $41. $20 is really unrealistic because I do about 2 activities, I guess you can say, a month, and $20 doesn't cut it. So I'd have to make sure I take a mental note of that when I set up February's budget and find a happy medium that I'm not giving myself too much but not too little in these categories. I have all my singing funds laid out here, but realistically, I don't have any money. I didn't put any money towards these just because those were not really top priority with my lack of income. I kind of want to just make sure that I started off the month good with all my bills taken care of and just focus on the little things like the house down payment savings account that was funded between the 52-week and my rent contribution. So debts also didn't get anything even though I budgeted $60. Emergency fund got a total of $16 from my $5 and $1 savings that I'm doing. So in my cash envelopes, for example, in these 3 that I carry in my wallet, whenever I receive a $1 bill or $5 bill back from a transaction, I take that money out of that envelope and put it towards the challenge, and that's where my emergency fund gets funded. So for January, I was able to put a total of $16 towards that, which is a nice little addition. Oh, I actually forgot to total out my cash envelopes, which ended up being $203. So we were over budget by a total of $63, I'm guessing. Yeah, we were over budget by $63, which I'm not happy about, but I'm just gonna put total, and I'm gonna total out everything from all of my categories. So what I'm gonna do is do equals, and I'm gonna add up my tithe plus 52-week plus the total bills plus the cash envelopes and we're at $1,133.59. And I actually forgot that in my cash envelopes I basically $26. So let me explain what I just did. One thing that I didn't take note of when I was making this budget was the fact that I was going to dye my hair. And what I did was, for that paycheck that came up, I allocated money towards purchasing the hair dye that I would need so that my mom can dye my hair. My mom is a hairdresser and she's the one that dyes my hair. So I didn't have it at the beginning of the month, but towards the middle of January is when I actually got my hair done. So even though I didn't have it in the monthly budget, I added it into my budget for that paycheck. And some people may not agree to do that. Some people would have just put that in unbudgeted, but since I made a line item for it in my paycheck budget breakdown for that week, I decided to just add it into my cash envelopes, because what I did was I just took out that money and purchased the hair dye for my hair, which, as you can see, I dyed it darker. I was just trying to get myself back to as close to my natural hair color as possible. So I ended up spending $26. I'd rather spend $26 than triple the amount to get my hair done at a hair salon, when I just have to put a little bit towards the actual hair dye and supply so my mom can do it for me. So that's why before the total was $1,133, but the 26 that remaining from the total income that I had was what I used for my hair. So as you can see, the total here and the total income is off by pennies, which is honestly very rewarding, because not gonna lie, there's sometimes that I close on my budget and it's not that simple. I'm either over budget or under budget by a couple dollars, and I never stress it. I'd rather just leave it as is, and I try to do my best to track where all of this money is going to make sure that at the end of the month this process is smoother. That's why for me, budgeting by paycheck helps, because then all I have to do is add up the line items and I'll have the total for the full month. So I hope that kind of makes sense, and going over this, you're able to get a glimpse into how I budget and how I close out at the end of the month. It's not a long process if you set yourself up each week for success, meaning tracking your expenses and budgeting per paycheck or however system you use, just making sure that at the end of the month, all you have to do is add up the totals and plug in the numbers, and you're able to compare to see how you started and where you're at and what you can do to adjust for the next month. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment and a thumbs up down below to let me know that you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!